scales shine like diamonds, wings that touch the sky. Guardians of the planet Earth, protecting all that cry. When the storms rage above and the darkened shadows creep, they shield the outer danger from attacking when we sleep. Through their breath of fire, we will find our way back home. They are always there to call on, no matter where we roam. Hear the thunder of dragons, flying high above the earth, protectors of the ancient realms, hidden since.
And here we are once again. Welcome to the Heartfire Chronicles podcast, and episode number 3. Just me and you, so to speak, for tonight. Um, where are we going to go tonight? I wonder where we're going to go. Well, we're connected with technology, right? So I wanted to talk about, a little bit about my background in technology and, where I am and what I understand about it today, and seeing the evolution of technology all the ways to where it is. And so to step back in some history, okay, and the introduce, of course, if you don't know who I am, I should have started out with that one first. My name's Gary, and welcome to, again, the Heartfire Chronicles podcast. This technological wonder, this world of connectivity everywhere, IoT devices, in the Internet of Things, everything's connected, everything's wired, everything is here it is. Okay. It's all connected. So your Fitbit is connected. Your microwaves are now even connected. Stoves, fridges. It's such a vast connectivity. And where it all began was about this super information highway. And so I'm going to step back to where I began in technology before even the internet even existed. Back in 1988 and 88, when I decided to take a course in engineering and microprocessor design and circuitry and understanding Ohm's law, and we can get into a little bit more of a conversation of that later on. But the whole evolution of where I saw things going, I first company I ended up working with is actually a lot of people would see it in their musical industry, Roland pianos and Boss pedals and other musical instrumentation that came from a corporation called Roland Music. Roland Music is a subsidiary of Roland DG, which is the Roland Digital Group. And they are the ones that were responsible for, designing machines that could actually help build these things and make tool and die and molds and architectural tables and so on. And in the time of working with that corporation, I saw an evolution take place. Okay, first off, internet was barely even anything we knew. We had IRC, which is an internet relay chat, okay, because that was a connection, the beginning of connectivity, and it was dial-up modems, 300 baud, and we thought that was wow. We're communicating with somebody over our mother's telephone line, or and then we're texting ASCII codes, and we thought that was pretty cool. And the game industry now started to come into place, and games are made available, very rudimentary. And as it's evolved into where it is now, it's like unbelievable. And what I'm trying to help you understand is like every decade that I've seen gone through this, the changes, how it's affected industry, how it's affected, artists, how it's affected a great deal of things that were done by hand can now be done by a machine. And AI. Ooh, that's a topic, isn't that? AI. I wonder where we're going with that one. In this whole evolutionary process, part of my also background before technology was I've done a lot of things with my hands. What I mean by that is I've worked as a signing artist, a silk screen artist, cutting ruby lith films, hand painting, aerobrush, doing all sorts of beautiful artistry. And what I saw in this digital evolution and revolution, because it was both, was the onslaught of printing machines, printing devices that would came from black and white into rudimentary color, then into electrostatic, and now into today's world of digital printing that you can print anything on almost everything. And being around the world as a technical specialist and working with these machines and working with software developers such as Autodesk and MicroStation and others, and developing drivers to work with these devices, so that we can get something from the computer onto that machine, whether it was a simple design of the architect and drawing out all of his architectural outlays and layouts, for the builders, for the construction industry and so on. Something that was done by hand now has a automated drafting table, a pen that could come down with 1/10,000th of an inch in resolution and move from point A to point B across 48 inches with 3 Gs of acceleration and even more. Now it's even faster. Now it's no longer a pen; it's actually digital, printing head devices that are throwing down splatters of paint or ink and putting this on any type of material. And I remember being in Paris for an exposition, and I was representing both the software company, which was, designing the graphic arts, and taking that graphism and bringing it onto an electrostatic printer, and some of the very beginning stages of the high-end inkjet printers, printing up to again 48 inches wide. And some of the things I saw when this show was like now a robotic printer that you could roll a van up to, or an 18 wheeler, and this thing could just lay out up and down, scanning and print a multitude of colorations and graphics and lettering, and and the evolution of where that was going. And I remember a gent that came to see me at the show, and he says, I'm an artist, said, and I'm trying to, understand digital, and I would like ideally to reproduce my prints, in a way that was more affordable. And he gave me a design, and he said, if you can print this in exactly the way that I painted it, I'm going to buy 50 of those machines. I was like, whoa, 50 of those machines. That would have really impressed both the hardware company and the software company, because I was representing both of them. And so I worked all night working with color calibration and fine tuning the colorations. And here I have his original paint, and I'm measuring it, and I'm looking at this, and it was all night. I didn't sleep. And the gent came the following morning, and I printed out a 36 by 48 inch poster of that painting that he had. He looked at it, looked at his painting, and he said, I'll take those 50 machines, but I want 75 more. And that was a big thing, because what massive sale. But I saw something else as well. Is here was this hand touch, this influence of using our hands and energy, and a sense of real artistry, now wanting to work with duplication, and multiple duplications. But his application was far more than just this. His application was vast in t-shirt designs, and you know just unbelievable how this digital revolution and evolution was taking place. There was also another device that was coming up at that same time. And as I said earlier on, I had been this hand lettering artist, taking a quill, with horsehairs, and, hand painting the lettering, and, taking the time to flow this out. And then, even cutting rubylith screens, and, for the four color process, and laying down four colors, and so on and so on and so on. And now we have a machine that has a little tiny knife on it, and it could cut vinyl. So here we are again, something that, from an artistry point of view, that was that hand painting, that input of, there's a creativeness in this. And I'm not saying there's not creativeness in the digital world, but there's something that's missing, that energetic touch. There's something that, when we create something with our hands, like this is some of the work that I do and things like that, that I create with my hands. It's something the machine can't possibly create. But a lot of the industry has this ability where now the sign artist is that used to do it with the brush is now just punches in a bunch of numbers and letters and designs and cuts that vinyl strip out. So Roland had come out with this device called the Cam One, and the Cam One was the inexpensive vinyl sign cutter. And what I mean by inexpensive in comparison to some of the other machines that were there, we're looking at four or $5,000 versus 50 to $100,000 on another closed loop system and a closed operating system. Roland's device was open source, meaning that it could work with applications like Adobe, Corel, Photoshop, and other applications that can take a text and now send that to the processor. And from the processor, send that to the machine that would now use that swivel blade and cut onto this piece of vinyl. And now we have a sticker versus that enameled hand lettering painting. Okay. Precision, of course. There's a difference between the two of them. You can see one that's hand painted, the flow, and the other one that's got this perfect line and this perfect cut. And then we just applied that onto a surface. That further developed into other elements. Now taking that one color vinyl, now we have color inks and printing on top of that colored vinyl. And now we have a multiple colored picture or sticker because that's what it was. And we could apply this, and here we have something that's totally taken the whole marketplace from that hand artistry to now anybody with a computer that could get into the sign making industry. So there was two things in this. One, it gave opportunities to more people to do artistry in this type of side, in the digital artistry, but it also annihilated that hand artist. There's still some of them today that still do hand pinstriping, on motorbikes and so on, because some of us old school, we like that flow. We like that, that variation of the paint and the gold lettering and all of this. But there is this other side that now all it takes is the computer and punch in these designs and templates, and you can find, as we see on the internet today, you can just google an image and there's that image, and you can duplicate that and replicate that. And even when it says it's a copyright, all we have to do really is alter something in that design, and it no longer has a copyright to it because we've changed coloration, we've expanded it, we've used maybe that original as the base, but we've taken and turned it into a copycat of that original. And unfortunately, this is widespread. And that brings up something else, copycat. Let's look at the internet, this world that is everybody's so connected to and so worried that how many followers I have and how many friends, and being that of an influencer and being that mm, seeking validation to an outside world versus the validation from within. And this opens up a darker side of what this internet is all about. This whole of the internet, and the bashing of one social media program over another social media program, that this one's a spyware and that one's a spyware. Well, bottom line, folks, it's all spyware. Everything that connects is spyware. Your Fitbit picks up that heart rate. That's data. That data is going up to a server. It's processing it. And from that server, is it only staying there? No, it's going everywhere. Okay. So if we get away from bashing one social media program or one application over another and understand the source of it, the source of it is that if it connects, it collects. And it's everything: telephones, computers, anything that is connecting to that internet, that data way, that pathway, is collecting information to a point where right now, even your Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi, I say Wi-Fi, that box, that router, okay, that's a collector point. So that box that you connect into that creates that home network and mesh network, whatever technological word you want to use, is allowing you connectivity. But it's also doing something else. Some researchers have actually developed algorithms that Wi-Fi that's beamed all around you is able to detect human or living movement, meaning that you as the human, as you're walking around in your space, and let's say you're walking around in your birthday suit, this technology allows it to pinpoint like radar. And so every movement that you are making, from sitting on your toilet to making love in your bedroom to picking your nose sitting on the couch, can be seen as if it's X-ray. X-ray radar. Just think of all those beams going around you. And so it's beaming and bouncing off and pinpoint accuracy as to exactly what you're doing. So before you start saying that this program is spyware and that one's spyware and bashing it, everything that you got that's connected is spying on you. Even if you shut down everything in your house and have no Wi-Fi connectivity, you're going to step on the outside world and there is towers and repeaters and 5G and all the radio signals out there that's able to be used mapping. So it can map everything to the point that that satellite way up there can pinpoint you to a T, to exactly where you are. So how do we avoid this? Well, one would say shut everything down, but yet the world is still connected. Faraday cage, there's an ultimate. You can build a house with a Faraday cage and then have nothing that's connected and nothing can get through that Faraday cage. So now you're in a protected space. But as we're going in this world right now and technology is moving forward, we can see two sides to it. It can be used as a useful tool. It can also be used as a destructive tool. The usefulness of it is that it gives us access to connectivity to maybe speaking to somebody on the other side of the world that we never would have spoken to before, except for maybe a telephone call, but that would have known one person. Now, with the way social media platforms work, as what I'm doing right now, I can speak to hundreds of people at the same time. And we can connect in a way that allows us to connect in a collectiveness, in unity, and bringing forth philosophies, understandings, knowledge, or we can connect in a way that is manipulative, narcissistic, and seeking that validation. The selfies, the proclaimed, look at me, see me. What am I showing? Who are you showing? And why are you showing? And when you look at this, why is it so important for you to be up on that live and our selfie and making all those poses and showing this to the world? Have you ever asked that question, why? And in today's youth, we are so disconnected from life, from the truth of life, disconnected from nature, disconnected from the ancestors and their knowledge, because we say that's old and that's passe. And you know what? As the younger generation, we don't want to listen to you old folk. Well, yeah, I'm a boomer. Am I old? I'm mature, but that doesn't mean I'm old. And the essence of maturity comes in many different forms, no matter what age it is. The maturity is also, in part, discernment. You're connecting to that world. You're showing yourself to that world. Are you using discernment? Is it all about your flesh? Is it all about, like, hey, I got to put myself out there on maybe the fans only pages or whatever? And is it purposeful? Is it something that's meaningful? Does it have value? Is it morals? Or have you forgot about this is your temple? Do you honor your temple? Do you respect your temple? Do you have values and morals? Or is it only about how many friends and fans that you can have and showing yourself off to the world? Now, think about this. You're showing yourself off to the world. There's a dark side to that connectivity. In the essence of maybe this vessel of yours has a certain value to others. Okay, in the sense of slavery, in the sense of pedophilia, in the sense of many, many, many deep, dark circles. So, what are you showing? Are you maybe putting yourself at potential risk? Because now you've been identified as maybe a certain blood type, okay, that has a higher value. And we can go deeper into this, but this will be more of a podcast coming down further on down the line and mm, some harsh information for you to see and some truths that are out there. Whether you want to see it or not, it's part of the reality. And if you want to keep running away from it, then you're only enabling the problem and you're allowing it to continue. But what I want to help you to understand in this world of connectivity is that you have to be very, very diligent and use extreme discernment of who you're communicating with, who's sending you direct messages, what you're showing to the world, what you're showing on your social media in the essence of here's my image. And if we see what AI is capable of doing, I can take that one photograph and I can now use an application and speak a couple of words into it. And it takes your photograph and your words and creates an AI character that's almost pinpoint accuracy to what you are as a living being. So let's say, for an example, you took that picture of yourself. Beautiful photo. Your makeup's all done or whatever. Okay. Whatever image of vanity that you want to show to the world. And that's picked up by that AI. Okay. Now there's a darker side. That AI image can now be incorporated into a film that maybe you don't want to be seen in because now it's using you as a character and portraying some act that has no morals, has no values, or maybe it's setting you up for hmm, value in a consumer type marketplace. I'll let you explore that one a little bit. In this essence of this connectivity and being an online person and coming in or an online personnel and bringing this information to you or sitting with you at nights and doing lives and experimenting with music and experimenting and showing you different types of medication or meditations and breath work and connectivity. There is another side of this. Many of my followers on TikTok will come to me and say, Gary, did you send me a direct message? And I've said this a million times. I don't send you direct messages. You want to connect with me, you want to connect with my services, you go to my website, you read all about what I'm capable of offering, you see the services, and now we have a communication through email. But we see a lot of these copycat profiles, duplications of people on the internet, and now being used for other precarious activities. Bait and switch, as an example. A tarot reader says, you know what, I'm going to do a reading for you or offer a reading for you, or the ancestors are calling out and saying that I have an important message for you, or they're using some other fearful technique that sort of is baiting you to engage with them to give them money for them to do some sort of reading for you. Extreme discernment. And I say this to a great deal of followers and a great deal of people I meet in person is that who is that person sending you that message? Have you verified who that person is? Have you taken the time to look at that profile meticulously? Have you set up a way to speak to them and you can see them in person versus just a couple of text messages and then give them your credit card? If you're doing that, you get scammed, it's on you. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to open your eyes, to see everything and question everything, not just once, but question it twice, question it three times, question it as many times as you want until you're absolutely certain before you decide to do any type of engagement in this world of the internet with anybody. You can have spent a year, and I have a story with this, and a young lady and child that spent a year communicating with somebody, military soldier, so to speak. Okay, And what happened? She formed what she felt was a solid relationship. There was, a good friendship that was there. Military person up there doing the things for the country. And he asked her if she could cash a check for him because where he was in the part of the world, he couldn't have access to his funds, whatever the story was. So she decided to do that for him. So she got this check, $5,000, cashed it, sent the money to him, and he disappeared. And she was left on the hook for that $5,000. So even when you think you know somebody, again, anybody that is going to come to you and say, "Can you, send me some money? Can you cash a check for me? Can you send me a telephone or any type of a sob story?" Be aware that they're playing on you and they're prying or trying to, the predatory side of it is to, "I want something from you." So they will take months, maybe even a year or more to set you up because they've got multiples that they're doing this with. And chances are it's not one person, it's an entire network. And these scamming networks are vast and they are predominant in this world of the internet. And it's happening time and time and time again. Romance scams, money scams, all of this. And the only way to avoid this is, what? Is taking the time to verify. And even then, even if you've known this person for 6 months, 6 years, but you've never met in person, why are you sending the money for the sob story or the romance story? It's like, ooh, we all get vulnerable. We all get lonely in life. And we get so lonely that we don't want to step outside because it's other reasons. And now we go in behind the screen. We feel safer, don't we? We think we're safe because we're just behind the screen. But these con artists will play you. They're going to play with your emotions. They're going to play with your vulnerability. And they're going to see the weakness. Now they're going to start weaving. That's like this snake in the grass. And that snake in the grass is just waiting for that right moment to strike. Once they've struck, you're the one that's losing. Not only are you losing maybe money, but you're losing sense of self because somebody played upon that emotional structure, somebody played upon your vulnerability, and now you're left feeling even more alone than what you were before you began connecting into that internet. And that can go into dating websites. You see the profiles and you say, "Oh, this is a great looking person." And when you finally meet that person, there's some differences, the filters and all of the things that we can use in this world of technology. So the question is, again, coming back down to how do I protect myself? Discernment, asking those questions, verifying that profile, verifying that person. There's many ways that you can do this. Okay. And I have many clients that come to me, clients and followers, saying, "Gary, did you send me a message?" No. Okay. I've had ones come to me and say, "You owe me $50. For what?" "Well, you did a reading for me, but I never got my reading." "Oh, really? Can you prove that to me?" And this is, again, coming back to extreme discernment. We can use technology in a very beautiful way. I use technology in a beautiful way. I use it as an outreach, a place to create a community known as the Heartfire Chronicles. It's a community that's moderated and it's mostly on TikTok because, well, I chose to go to TikTok versus Facebook and Instagram. Just wasn't cutting it on Facebook and Instagram. And that's another discussion. What's been created on TikTok has surprised me. It's actually overwhelmed me. A couple of nights ago, as an example, and somebody very, very, very close to me, and I mean very close to me, was in a situation of extreme stress because of a situation that was happening that goes into a very long story. And I'm not going to go into the details of that. What I asked the community to do is to join me in a collective prayer, in a collective energy, in a collective moment of silence to just send some good wishes. What I experienced in that was so overwhelming that I questioned a great deal. It left me in a world between a physical understanding and a spiritual understanding, like walking between these two realms, like a floatiness. I felt the energetic connection that was coming from the multitude of followers that were in that live at that time. We had shut the comments down. And so I wasn't distracted with the screen. I was only in that moment of bringing this collective together and bringing this energy together and seeing that as everything is energy, frequency, and vibration, that we were allowed to have this collective connection and the heat and the vibration and everything that was being felt around me was like, where am I? Questioning everything. The emotions that came forward, the sense of this empath, compassion, and concern that was coming from a community that you've never met me in person. You've never met the person in question that I'm asking you to send this energy to, and yet you did. You showed me something that, in the essence of using technology, that we were able to come together as one people, regardless of our age, gender, color, creed, language, or walk of life. And no matter what was going on in your life, you put that aside and we came together as this collective unity and a collective consciousness. And when we understand that there is a collective consciousness that connects everything through energy, frequency, and vibration, your energy, frequency, and vibration during that live connected to everybody that was there from around the world. We connected from the four corners of the world through technology. Something that our ancestors would go like, that's not possible. But yet it is possible. So we can use technology in a very, very helpful, very loving, very compassionate, very educational way. But we also have a lot of narcissism out there that portrays of labels and images and the so-called messiahs and I'm this guru, and it's a narcissistic movement because what they're putting out there in this world of technology is not the same person that's walking down the street. And we can see this even in local communities that's outside the technology. There's a lot of this, the person that has this image, this look at me, I'm a guru or other, and has played this, finding the vulnerabilities in that small collective. The difference between that and the difference of technology is that that's a small, maybe collective of 30, 40, 50, 60 people. And now we're in the thousands when we go into technology. And we can branch out and we can spread out words, thoughts, even actions and reactions. In this world of internet connectivity and social medias, we also have the cyber bullies. As much as we have the bullies that are walking down the street that are physically being that bully. And these little groups of whatever we want to label them as, think it's fun to, pry upon somebody and, demean them and, speak badly and use this textual cowardness is the way I'll call it, because there is there's no integrity in that whatsoever. It's these keyboard warriors that they think they are that are nothing more than keyboard cowards because they sit behind that other side of the screen. They think they can text anything out that they want to, and that thinks that validates them. We see it in the Heartfire Chronicles and the Nightly Lives, and we see it elsewhere. In fact, I speak with, psychologists and psychiatrists that say that there's a rash of this 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 listless lostness in today's youth, so connected to the online world that they're disconnected from the real world. And they have put more value into that online world and how many friends and fans they have, that when that disconnection happens and they can't get the connection, they go into anxiety, panic, and fear. And we can look at this and just what happened in that ban in TikTok and hit the United States. Look at what it did to over 170 million people that were in panic of losing their livelihood, losing their connectivity. How many of them were thinking of opting out? How many of them were thinking of self harm? How many of them were lost because now their world is falling apart? Is it a real world? There's a part of it that's real because it's been giving them a financial stability and it's helping them to survive in a world that, we know what's going on there. But that was a something to look at. Imagine if the internet shut down tomorrow. And I mean completely shut down. No connectivity. Telephone's not working. GPS is not working. You can't Google where you're going. You can't order your food. You can't phone anybody. You can't get on to Google a recipe. You can't get on to Google your news or anything like that. And now you're left with what? You. Would you be able to survive? Question really how much you are fixated on the use of technology versus integrating with life. Do you have survival skills? Do you know how to make a fire? Do you know how to find your directions without the telephone? Do you know how to make tools? Do you know how to forage? Do you know how to build a habitat if you needed to? These are things that you should look at as an individual in the case of this doesn't work because it has a high potential of happening. And the high potential of it is that the increased solar flares that could knock out complete connectivity. And now, if everything is controlled by the internet, now nothing's controlled by the internet. If your lighting was controlled by the internet, it's not working. If your stove was controlled by the internet, it's not working. You can't use it because it's asking you to do something else. But you can't do that because it's not connecting. What would you do? What would you do in that moment that it shut down? Where would it put you? Coming into self-reliance is to learn these survival skills. Communication skills is part of a survival skill. And in today's world, a lot of the younger generation don't really have communication skills. They have tech skills. They can definitely get on that device and I watch as some of them move their thumbs around. I'm going like, holy patita. Even the electronic typewriters weren't moving that fast. And they're forming, I think it's sentences. But is it a sentence? Shortened verbose, acronyms, shortened words. So we're actually dumbing ourselves down by relying upon just that technology. How many go as a couple to the restaurant and do you look at each other? Do you look at each other in the eyes? Do you engage in meaningful conversation? Or is it a 30-minute meal? If that, you might take in 15 minutes to eat your meal, but you've been on your phone more than you've been talking to the person that's there with you. How many parents are giving their younger children telephone? The ages of 3, 4, 5, 6, or even taking a baby and putting them in front of a television and letting the baby sit in front of that television rather than interacting with that child. You're doing this, you're not giving that child any survival skills. You're teaching that child to rely upon technology, television. limited coloration versus being outside in nature, seeing the trees and the flowers and the birds and the bees and the differences in, the night and the day. No, planted in front of a television, planted in front of a computer screen, gaming worlds. And this is what your children are doing. This is what you're allowing them to do because you feel that you don't have time. This is what this internet has done in many ways. It's shortened the attentive span from one generation to another generation to another generation. As a boomer, I didn't grow up with technology. I grew up with nature. I was outside, I was climbing trees, I was digging holes, I was playing with mud, I was camping. We were outside. We weren't glued to a device. That gave me some very basic skills because I know how to use my hands to create, to forage, to be with manual dexterity versus shortened down just my thumb movements. And we can see it even in the evolution from one generation to another that even the thumbs have actually become more pointy from one generation to the other because we have been modifying our own genetics by teaching that this was more important, that this was a lifesaver, and yet it's not. It has a convenience to it. Yes, it does. It has the ability that you can gather information, find recipes rather than, well, my grandmother used to create recipes. She didn't have a Google device. She used her thoughts, her taste, her smell. And now we Google that recipe. Doesn't quite taste the same. I can get a recipe that's been Googled and somebody creates that and has never ever created it from thought process. And there's something that doesn't taste as good as the one that created it from here to finding it on the device and following that recipe. Again, it's a tool. The ability to use it as a tool. There's nothing wrong with that. But if the tool has become an addiction that's taken away your survival skills, your ability to use your minds and really explore and to expand upon gaining knowledge that is retained versus how long do you retain that knowledge that you've gotten from that telephone? The knowledge that I've retained is because it's been from practice. It's been using my hands. It's been using my brain, allowing me to explore my creativity, to explore, to troubleshoot, to work with this. And even though that I've been involved in technology, I still had that skill set. As an example, in the early days of, learning this technology and working with Roland as a corporation, we were being trained from the Japanese on how to precisely align and measure the movements of these drafting tables, all these fancy tools. And I remember the engineer from Japan coming in and giving us these tools and saying, this has got to be a precise gram weight, and this has to be a precise alignment. That was cool. I used my fingers. I measured the tension of those pulley wires with my fingers. And that engineer looked at me and he said, that's not going to work. That's not precise enough. I said, let me try. That sensitivity that I have in my fingertips and that flexibility that I have in my fingertips, because this is what I've done all my life. I've used my hands, not just on a device, but I've used my hands to create, to, to troubleshoot. And he came and he measured it with that device. It was dead on. He didn't believe it. And he loosened everything off. He says, do that again. I said, okay. Tightened it all up, tested it, moved it back and forth, feeling the sensitivity, and he measured it again. And he didn't say a word. He just walked away because he would not admit that what I did was right and he was wrong. So what I'm trying to say by this is not being boastful. I'm saying be able to use your hands. This ability to use it to do something with your hands and your thought process rather than just relying upon technology to say, here it is. Because the moment that it's not going to be there, what are you going to do? And coming back to protecting yourself on the internet, careful with the information you share, careful with the photos that you put out there, careful with what you say about yourself. If you don't, it can be gathered and it can be used against you in many different ways. And you have to be ready for that. If you're taking and putting a photo of your child out there, are you ready to maybe see a film that's been created from the picture of your child? What if that comes at you? That photograph of your child is now in some sort of a film that they shouldn't be in. Because this is how intelligent this technology is becoming. The ability to take one photo and turn it into a lifelike character. And we're seeing it in the applications that are coming out. We're seeing it in musical creation. We're seeing it in artistic creation. And now we're seeing it in actually you as an AI with your words, and yet it's not you. So it's attention to what you're sending out there and what you're doing and what applications you're doing. Somebody asked me, how do I safeguard myself? Unplug it. But even there, it's not 100% fail safe because the world's still connected. But we can come together in a collective way to use technology rightly and to maintain a certain integrity with it rather than just allow it to keep going the way it's going. So I invite you to open up any questions you have towards how do I protect myself or usages of internet or anything that you want to talk about in the essence of this world of IoT. Again, IoT is this internet of things because it's just things. Telephone's a thing. It's not a person. And if you're more attached to your telephone than you are to the people around your life, then you need to step back and reflect and think about what are you doing as a human being that has compassion and kindness and generosity? Because if you got more importance on your telephone than you do on the person before you, that's not going to be a very, very happy life. So it's open to you to any questions that come forward. And in the meantime, tomorrow night on TikTok, of course, join me for the Heartfire Chronicles once again at 9:30 Mountain Daylight Time. Saturday for Chakra Shake, and something else is coming forward. Some people are asking me, like, Gary, are you doing battles? Not the battles that you would perceive as what we see on a lot of these platforms, but a battle that's really about community coming together, showing maybe in the power of music, and seeing how we can interact with this. Okay, it's something that I'm willing to give a try to, and we'll see where it goes. So questions open to the platform, to the audience, if you have any. I'm going to take a drink of my coffee. Yeah, I'm still drinking coffee with oat milk. It's a little bit more tasty. Hmm. Thoughts? Concerns? Give it a few more minutes, and if not, then we are going to leave it at that for tonight. And I'm going to wish you all a beautiful evening and restful peacefulness and finding a way to, maybe connect to Mother Earth a little bit more. Maybe take a moment to look at the stars instead of looking at your television and your Netflix and watching your news, which opens up the word about news. NEWS. North, east, west, south. Think about that one for a minute. see. Maybe I can get convince Kevin to come in the background on this one. What is the best way to protect without switching off? Let's think about this. If that router is still active and you've shut everything off, the router's still active. And as I mentioned earlier on, they're able to now use the router to send waves of, we can say it's a radar signal. And so you can turn off your phone, but the router's still active. And so that router is still sending information throughout your entire space. It's not only what it's sending as information and bringing back information, it's also, the EMF that's with this. So you're putting into your space EMF energy that is not natural energy, not natural frequencies. So in order to say, can I protect myself without switching it off? Absolutely not. Shut that router off. Totally turn that telephone off. Anything that is connected that doesn't need to be connected while you're resting, or maybe deciding to play a game with your children, or maybe have a card game or a moment of reading a book. Why are you still having your telephone active? Why is the internet still active? It's a question of what's more important. Your safety in the sense of not prying information. Let's talk about the telephone. Apple telephones and Android telephones, two different operating systems. An Android telephone, I can activate your camera and your microphone without you even knowing it on an Android device. That's the one thing that you can't do on an Apple device. And the reason is because the Apple device is a proprietary operating system, and it uses a complete different circuitry. And that circuitry has its own CPU for the telephone, for the sound, for the camera, for the voice, everything. It's independent from the way that the other CPUs are working within that telephone. As a closed system, operating system, it's not open source. Every Android device that's using a non iOS system is an open source software. And as an open source software, it's accessible to anybody that has access to the internet to create code, to develop code. So these Android devices and the Android operating systems, they have backdoor technology in them that anybody with the right tools can access to activate, as I said, your camera, your listening, your microphone. So it's a choice is what's more important, your telephone or your privacy? And if you think that your privacy is protected by using your telephone, it's not. Everything's listening to it. Everybody's listening to it. Everything that connects and goes through this pipeline of information goes through a router. And that router goes to a data server. And that data server goes to a cloud device. And that's collected up over here, and then it's dispersed. Every ISP collects your information, your browsing history, and that's made accessible by selling it to another agency. And the next thing you know, how is it that you went on to Google something and there's a little ad that pops up when you were just talking about that maybe 15 minutes ago? Because it's listening to you. So how do you protect yourself? Make sure it's completely shut off. What are the good things that I see in technology? Access to information, I see it as a good way in one part. Something that if I want to go deeper into, if I want to go into a digital book as an example, and I can get that as a digital book versus maybe I can't get that at the library. Maybe it's no longer in existence. Okay, but there's a digital copy of it that allows me access to that information. That's, I can say, is a good point. The connectivity that allows me to do outreach around the world is a good point. Technology has allowed me to communicate with clients around the world that are in need or in need of my services, my products. I'm able to have a larger outreach, so I can see a good side to it there. I can also see it a good side is, this sometimes in this having a conversation with somebody, in the moment that I know somebody, I can have a conversation, we can talk, we can have a video, we can see each other. So we can have a certain interactivity that may not be person to person, but I can still see you. So there is a good side to that technology. In graphic arts, I use it. I use the technology. I use old school. I've dabbled in the AI, but I'm still, in programs that takes a lot more time to do layers and colorations and, moving pixels around and so on. So I'm not saying that technology is not is a bad thing. It is a useful tool if we see it as a tool rather than seeing it as I need my phone. You take your phone to the washroom. Why are you taking your phone to the washroom? That's the one place I go and I have peace and quiet. I don't have to worry about my telephone. And if somebody calls me while I'm in the washroom and has a problem with it because I didn't answer my phone right away, I say, excuse me? I was in the washroom. You want me to answer the telephone while I'm in the washroom? No. No. So see it as a tool, not as an addiction that's like, I can't live without it. I see a lot of ladies doing this, putting it in their bra. Don't do that. And I'll tell you why. You read the fine print on your telephone in that usage agreement, you're going to get to a point where it says to keep that device, all of them say it, it's all there, that disclaimer, keep the device at least 5 meters away from your skin. And now you've got it in your bra, or you've got it in your front pocket. Many men put it in their front pocket. Think about your private parts, guys, okay? Because it's generating a frequency that's cancer causing. It has been known that it affects the brain in a way that can develop brain tumors. It can develop cancer in many different ways. So if it says in the fine print, keep it 5 millimeters away from your skin, why are you like this? Even the fact that you're holding it in your hand, if I take an ohm meter that measures voltage, you put that device in your hand, and I'm going to take the hand that doesn't have that device in it, and I'm going to connect the ground to the earth. I'm going to measure, there's a voltage that's going through, a frequency, an energy. You take that device out of you, and I measure differently. So this thing's transmitting through your entire body, right down to the silica of your bones. Use it wisely. I have, reason why I have this in the back. That's an organite crystal. At least it helps offset some of the EMF radiation. I never put this to my head. I use my speakerphone. I don't use Bluetooth headsets. I use a wired headset. And so, think about it. So if there's no more questions, I'll see you tomorrow night on TikTok at 9:30 Mountain Daylight Time for a community of high vibration. We'll see you then. Until then, good night, à bientôt, and namaste.
In the heart of the mountains, the flying shadows play. Legends whisper softly in the light of day. Scales shine like diamonds, wings that touch the sky. Guardians of the planet Earth, protecting all that cry. When the storms rage above and the darkened shadows creep, they shield the outer danger from attacking when we sleep. Through their breath of fire, we will find our way back home. They are always there to call on, no Hear the thunder of dragons flying high above the earth, protectors of the ancient realms, hidden since our birth. Feel energy that rises, feel the fire in your heart, creeping up your body, awakening the start. In the depths of the forests, where spirits dance and sing, dragons listen carefully for souls that are calling. Then breathing life a fire, a flicker of the tail. Their hearts all beat in unison, that is timeless in this veil. When the storms rage above and the darkened shadows creep, they shield the outer danger from attacking when we sleep. Through their breath of fire, we will find our way back home. They are always there to call on, no matter where we roam. Hear the thunder of dragons flying high above the earth, protectors of the ancient realms, hidden since our birth. Feel energy that rises, feel the fire in your heart, creeping up your body, awakening the start. Let the fire burn brightly, our legends now unfold. Reach to the dragon force with souls that are so bold. In the tapestry of night,